Today I have something a little bit different for you all, and yes, this video is sponsored, but Outer Minds, they asked me to tell you all about their release, Turbo Kid, a game based on a cult film favourite and one that is coming to the Nintendo Switch eventually. And I say eventually because it's really yet to be announced that release date, but here we're going to preview what it's all about from the Steam build of the game, and I've been having an absolute blast, so I was happy to support them. Now if you do want to jump into this build of the game as well, I have linked to Steam down below. Go ahead and check it out. I've played it on both my desktop and Steam Deck, no issues at all, and this is an absolute gem for Metroidvania fans that you actually might not want to wait around for. Alright, so if you enjoyed the video, subscribe and let's get into it. Alright, so first, a little bit more about where this game came from. It was actually a Kickstarter from 2021 where they crushed their goals, and it acts as a sequel to the post-apocalyptic movie of the same name. Now, if you've not watched that, I urge you to. It is a gory love letter to the films of the past, and that's exactly the spirit the game catches as well. So the narrative here is definitely a simple setup. As I said, it's immediately picking up after the movie. But we are attacked in the opening moments of the game before a friendly local comes to our aid and saves us. Now we have our turbo glove intact, but we've lost nearly everything else, and so begins our adventure. We need to get out into the wastelands of 1997, that's right, it's set in the 90s, and collect weapon chips to allow us to move on. So what this basically entails is a huge cast to meet, tons of enemies from cults to mutants, and more than a few unique locations. So gameplay is really what you are coming for, and I've spent over 10 hours in this world at this point, and it's a really unique set of mechanics that had me just constantly coming back. Think traditional Metroidvania design, at least in its layout, but with a dash of run and gun styled gameplay and a bike which leads to all sorts of unique traversal and fast-paced maneuvers. A particular highlight is an example a skate park location which demands you pull off some tricky stunts to advance forwards. And I think where the game truly succeeds, however, it's just how alive this world feels. And like any game then as well, we do have core missions and side missions, but these are not often easy to distinguish unless you look at the pause menu, and that's a compliment. I think it just speaks to their quality and variety. So think collecting up comic books for reward, finding a troop of missing kids, or finding food for the locals that have some more than, let's say, unusual requests. That's before as well you even get to the challenge stages. Think races against an opponent, or another favourite of mine, an arena where you must kill everyone within a set time. And yes, it's kind of a nod to Thunderdome, but it's good stuff, and it's also extremely challenging. Now I do quickly want to point out then as well, Turbo Kid is very much an ultra-violent film, and that's exactly what they carry over to the game. They're not shy about it. Enemies won't simply fall at your feet after defeat, they'll explode into pixelated blood and guts. You can even pick up enemy heads and limbs and use them as a one-time projectile attack, something I never knew I needed in my life, but it's an absolute blast. On top of this then, the core combat around it really does feel great. We start with a simple blaster attack and quickly inherit a baseball melee swing as well, but this is just the beginning. You know, as I mentioned at the opening, the concept here is to collect up weapon chips, and an early example is a goo gun, which not only damages your foes, but also creates these different platforms for you to use. There's your kind of Metroidvania element, I guess. You need it to progress forward in many locations, but there's other examples too, switches to open doors or barriers that can't be bypassed until you reach the other side. The combat though feels great throughout, and the progression as well is something you absolutely need from the genre, but I think where it truly gets unique, it's the world. It's not only massive, but the inclusion of the bike leads to some unique designs, massive jumps for example, and I just can't really compare it to any other entry in the genre because you're going to be flying all over the place. There's also a particularly satisfying dodge roll that will unlock with time, but that provides invincibility frames, a saving grace honestly, as enemies become more and more brutal, and the bosses, they only seem to get bigger and bigger. Expect from here though wall jumps, grabbing to edges and all sorts, and yeah, the traversal really feels like something special. At this point as well, I do want to point out the footage you're seeing, very much the beginning. I'm very much purposely talking to the first half or so of the experience because you want to uncover many of this world's secrets for yourself. One thing I will however mention is character growth. You know, we've mentioned weapons and traversal, but we can also increase a few character specific traits through vendors and collectibles. This is all actually linked, at least purchases are, to the in-game currency cogs. You can buy hearts though to increase your health meter. You can gain power-ups that impact the chances of enemies dropping loot. And you can increase a stamina bar that's slowly introduced as you start to experiment with the secondary capabilities of your weapon. You'll also unlock save sofas and teleportation devices, which makes the back and forth to these, let's call them safe zones, a whole lot easier. I've had an absolute blast, honestly, and while yes, the Switch build is without a release date currently, when they reached out, I'd not yet had a chance to check out the game, but I was a big fan of the film, and so I opted to jump in before we agreed to the video, and I think that speaks to how much I enjoyed the experience here, because here, honestly, if you have a PC available, as I said, check it out on Steam. It worked flawlessly for me, and that included the Steam Deck as well. I do quickly then as well want to touch on the visuals and the audio. The pixel style is lovely, and even in handout I had no issues with its design, even when I was zoomed all the way out. The characters in this world just pack so much charm. They have a ton of animations, which goes a long way to presenting kind of a personality that's in keeping with the many gangs that pack this wasteland. And on top of all of this then, the landscapes are all unique, from deserts to sewers to, again, the highlight for me, that skate park. I particularly like the different attacks as well, the exploding enemies, the death screen, which is particularly gruesome, and the bike, which teleports in and out as you do require it. Also, I will say on a visual front as well, it's a really kind of fast-paced game, but they've done a really good job here of making everything very easy to understand and kind of to identify where those different enemies may be. Audio then for me was a winner as well, and I know I've been incredibly positive this far, and you're probably saying yes, it's sponsored, that's expected, but look, from beginning to end, it's generally impressed, and the music's so incredibly catchy. If you are questioning, my opinion as well, I don't blame you, honestly. Go and check out one of the many reviews. Pretty much everywhere has given this one universal praise. But yeah, when it comes to audio, like, there's no voice acting. That could have been a nice touch, but the music does bring, this kind of time and setting to life with constant themes dropping in and out. I'd actually happily buy this soundtrack if it was released on vinyl. And there's actually a good example of this, a church where the music's both beautiful but creepy as it overwhelms nearly everything else that surrounds you. The same thing can be said for weapons and deaths. It's kind of gruesome and aggressive, but that's exactly what you want. So yeah, that is Turbo Kid, a Kickstarter that found great success. It has been announced for the Nintendo Switch, but there's still not quite a release date announced. However, you can check it out on Steam right now, and if you have the option, as I know many of you will, then check it out in the pinned comment down below. That supports the team a huge amount. I personally played with an Xbox controller when I was going with the desktop build, and then the Steam Deck, of course, worked with no issue. Now, if you've played it, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments as well. And if you've seen the movie, let me know that too. This is a film that basically needs a sequel. In fact, I think the game needs a sequel as well in the future, because both of them really do deliver something incredibly unique. Now, if you did enjoy the video, subscribe, helps out the channel a huge amount, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.